there shall be signs in the sun, and in the moon, and in the stars, and upon the earth distress of nations, with perplexity, the sea and the waves roaring, men's hearts failing them for fear, and for looking after those things which are coming on the earth. For the powers of heaven shall be shaken. One man, one microphone, one mission, one message. True News, the only newscast reporting the countdown to the second coming of Jesus Christ. And now for the most powerful hour on radio, here is End Time Newsman, Rick Wiles.
This is True News, 1 hour of uncensored news, views, and commentary. Welcome to the program. I'm Rick Wiles. Today is Thursday, July 24, 2014. This program was pre-recorded on Monday, July 21st. By the time you hear this program, I will be in Idaho attending a private meeting. Now, I'm going to hold a breakfast meeting with True News listeners on Saturday morning before flying back to Florida. And if you've not registered, there is still time. You can email us at info@trunews.com, true without an E, info@trunews.com, TRUNEWS, or you can call the office at 772-569-8880. Now, the breakfast meeting will be held at the Best Western Hotel in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. We will start promptly at 7:30 a.m. This is a breakfast buffet, and we will go until 10:30 a.m. I hope we're not going to be eating that long, but the meeting will go till 10:30 a.m. I will talk a little bit and then answer your questions. As I said, it's a buffet breakfast, all you can eat, and we're only asking the attendees to cover the cost of the meal. This is not a fundraiser or anything like that. It's $22 per person, and that price includes the sales tax and the service tip. Now, several couples have told us that they need to bring their children along. That's okay with me. We'll just make the rule children under 12 eat free. And, True News will pick up any additional expense if there is any from the restaurant. So don't worry about that. If you have to bring your children, please do so. To make this easy on me, because I'm not, we're not making this into a major event. Just bring a check or cash, and we'll just have a basket at the front of the food line. Just drop it in the basket, and this will be an honor system. Okay. Make the check payable to True News, and then I'll pay the hotel restaurant with our credit card. And that'll make it real easy rather than the hotel giving meal tickets to everybody there and then trying to keep track of all that. So I just want to keep this real simple and easy. Now, originally I only expected a handful of people to come over to the restaurant to sit around the table, drink coffee, and talk. I didn't expect it to turn into a major event. There are people driving from California, Montana, Oregon, and Washington State to attend. And this has gone from a small get-together to a fairly large event. So now I have to comb my hair, brush my teeth, and shave on a Saturday morning. Oh, well, it's going to be worth it. I'm looking forward to personally meeting many of our True News listeners in the Idaho, Washington State region. And it's going to be a very, very good time together. Again, if you're certain you will attend on this Saturday, July 26, 7:30 a.m. to 10:30 a.m., Best Western Hotel, Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, then notify us so that we can alert the restaurant to cook more food. Please email us at info@trunews.com or call the office at 772-569-8880. This is going to be fun. I'm really excited about meeting our family face to face. I hope my face doesn't scare you, especially before eating breakfast. Well, I hope this interview doesn't scare you too. Throughout 15 years of broadcasting, I have maintained a general rule that I do not interview guests who have an assumed name. And I can think of only 3 or 4 people that I have allowed on this program without identifying their name, their true identity. Truthfully, I can understand from time to time there are people that have something to tell us and they simply cannot be identified. Things are getting downright weird and dangerous. And sometimes guests have to conceal their identity for either personal safety reasons or to shield their business or professional career from blowback. The danger in interviewing a guest with an assumed name is that it's hard for me to verify the veracity of the information that's being passed along on the program. So then I'm at risk. I'm making an exception today to interview a man who is known only as V. The little bit I know about his professional background, and I may be wrong, I'll find out here in a minute, is that he was a senior trader for a major European bank. Now, I have followed him for several years. I've read his analysis of what is happening to the global financial system, and often he is eerily right, such as his cryptic warning late last year that a hit team, an assassination team, was going to be turned loose to kill bankers. And about a month or so later, bankers started jumping off the top of skyscrapers. So that one made me sit up and pay more attention to V. So V is on the telephone, so I don't know how I can introduce a guest who only has a letter for a name. V, welcome to True News.
Glad to be on board, Rick. Glad to be on board for all your listening audiences. I guess since this is a new program and a new audience, and those that do know me and those that don't know, I'm just going to reintroduce myself. And for those who are hearing me for the first time, I'm just going to give you guys a little bit of a background on who I am and what it is I do and why I go under the moniker V, the Guerrilla Economist. First off, I cut my teeth in banking almost a decade ago. And I got my start as a broker for a major European commodity firm. It's a very well-known firm, and the man who brought me under his wings and taught me the ropes is a legend in the field. To this day, that gentleman goes down to Washington, D.C., speaks with senators, lobbies, congressmen. He's a heavy hitter, a major power player. This guy was so good at what he did, he retired at the age of 33. So there's some numerology there for all you esoteric types, but it also shows you the prominence of this individual. If I can't give too much information away, otherwise you know who it is. So learning the ropes, making the contacts, and being proficient in what I do. I cut my teeth on strategic metals. I took care of the whole entire program of strategic metals for this particular firm, and I took it from basically Africa, where it was mined and refined in Europe and traded throughout the world through our various trading partners in Asia and in America and all over. From there, I went to a major UK investment bank. At that time, it was the largest investment bank in the world by assets. And I became privy to a lot of things that I didn't like. I realized, okay, there's one thing in commodities where we base it not on performance but on volume. Right there is a conflict of interest. But in the banking and the trading world, I figured out that it's not just the volume that makes this thing a monster to deal with, but the simple fact of various levels of fraud. I began to voice my concerns, and in clear conscience, I can no longer be a part of that world. I still have professional contacts. I still do professional work. That's why I cannot have any blowback, number one, on my professional work that I do, number one. And number two, I have an impeccable track record. So far, pretty much every single thing that I have forecasted have come to pass within weeks or months of me saying it with uncanny precision. So because I have that, it's because I have professional relationships. And that's why I have to fly under a moniker called V. And if you got a guy out there telling you, hey, guess what, guys? They're about to bring this whole thing down. Hit teams are going to go into full effect. You're going to see bankers drop dead, and they're going to call it suicide. And then all of a sudden it starts happening. You got to understand this is a serious ball game. You see, I don't put myself out there simply because you got 38 dead bankers already and counting. There's 43 on the list. Today, a guy from Goldman Sachs just took a dirt nap. This afternoon.
Well, as we're recording this, and this again is being recorded on Monday, July 21st. We're broadcasting it on Thursday, July 24th. You're saying today, Monday,
today, an executive,
a Goldman Sachs executive,
managing director. That's like a VP level position right there.
What was the official cause of death?
They don't know. He went kite surfing. And they find him floating in the water with his kite surfing gear on the shore. He just dropped dead. The investigation is still pending. And this is going to get dusted underneath the covers, just with everything else out there, folks. Else out there.
What was the time span between when you publicly stated that there was an assassination hit team that was going to take out bankers, and then when we saw the first J.P. Morgan banker who jumped off the 33rd floor, there's that 33 again, jumped off the roof of the 33rd floor skyscraper. What was the time span between those two things?
Between those two events, it was 2 months exactly. November the 10th is when I put the warning out. The first guy to drop dead was Williams Brooksmith. He's the guy from Deutsche Bank. Deutsche Bank is the bank that I exposed that a lot of other guys are trying to take credit for. But Deutsche Bank, he was a director over at Deutsche Bank, and the man wound up hanging himself in his London home. He was the first to go. Then you had the gentleman over in J.P. Morgan in the UK that took a dive off the 33rd floor. In the middle was that cause of death. The man died at nighttime. They found his body during the day, and they changed witnesses' stories have been changed. I mean, they screwed with the evidence. The kid was killed.
And then shortly after that, another banker jumped off the J.P. Morgan building, and they left his corpse lie there on the roof of the 9th floor for half the day.
Yes.
And what I said on the air was the killers wanted all of the employees in the building to get a good visual image burned into their brains of what happens if you mess with them.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've never heard of a body allowed to lay there for hours.
Yep. Yeah, correct. Absolutely. For hours. And then you had witnesses who were initially witnesses, and then you see that their story falls apart. They try to, put it together. They don't want it leaking out there to the mainstream media that, hey, you know what? This guy's body's been out there on top of the roof for 9 hours. Let's go ahead and change that story. And all of a sudden, these eyewitnesses came out. Oh yeah, he jumped this morning. It just happened. So then that was proven false. So you have a lot of things happening, folks. It's unprecedented.
Obviously, you can't tell us sources, but regarding the assassination hit team of bankers, what's coming down, V? What's going on?
Okay. The way it works is we have massive levels of fraud. Okay. The system has gotten desperate. The system has gotten so stressed to the stretching point that it is imperative that while they keep the doors of this thing open enough so they can extract as much wealth out of the Western banking system, they got to make sure that any sort of corroborating evidence that can prove their criminal activity is dealt with. Okay? So what they're doing is they're tying up the loose ends. They're tying up the middle managers, the mid-level executives. These are the guys that are being silenced. Why? Well, whether you like it or not, these are the guys that if there was an injunction, there was a court order, these are the gentlemen, and guess what they all work in? Data. They all deal with IT. They all deal with head of trading platforms, trading desks. So they see the trades that are done. They are aware of what's called dark pools. Okay, dark pools are exchanges within the bank itself where those who participate in the dark pool are privy to certain prices on certain trades. all illegal, by the way, and it's not even ethical. So these gentlemen have that data at hand that shows the effect not only of the dark pool, but also of high-frequency trades and the massive amount of fraud that is occurring within the derivatives market. So you take that together, you have an absolute megalithic criminal enterprise that's running the banking system in the United States as well as in Europe. And this is the thing that they want to do. They want to bring this whole thing down, Rick, and have total and complete plausible deniability.
Years ago, there was a very popular medical message on recording that circulated around the United States. It was titled "Dead Doctors Don't Lie." Mm-hmm. So now we have "Dead Bankers Don't Testify."
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Because what they're doing, they're taking out the mid-level managers who actually carried out the criminal deeds. And they're being eliminated, so they can't testify in a court of law about what they were instructed to do.
Correct. Absolutely. And these are all these guys. Okay, just giving a little bit of detail here, folks. These are men who are successful. These are men at minimum with a 7-figure income. Okay? These are the guys that are being knocked off. They're not dying because all of a sudden they felt with stress. Let me tell you about some of working in Wall Street. Stress and pressure is something we revel upon, okay? And there's a reason why Wall Street guys party like nobody's business. Because these guys work extremely hard in the most stressful of conditions, and they party even harder, okay? Some of these things are, you've seen it in movies like The Boiler Room, The Wolf of Wall Street, the movie Wall Street. It just shows you the level that these guys play in. And it really is that way. So all of a sudden, you got bankers that are stressed out. They're jumping off of buildings. That don't make no sense whatsoever. Stress is part of the job. We welcome it. We do best in stress. Is
the killing spree over, or has it just begun?
It's far from over. It's far from over. My sources are telling me I'm still waiting for somebody from Citigroup to pop dead, and that'll possibly happen. If it's 100% it's going to happen or not, I will be surprised if it doesn't. But I'm expecting some people to be who are connected with the Forex market. And the reason for Forex market, folks, is because of the massive amounts of fraud there with the U.S. dollar and the way they're manipulating that to keep the bond prices low and to keep the U.S. dollar index high, to give everybody the impression that everything's fine, everything's okay. So there's massive amounts of fraud there. We've seen some people that are linked to Forex in some of the Swiss banks go to jail, and we've seen some people that are linked to Forex in the American banks like Bank of America and Citigroup, who were all of a sudden reshuffled and their Forex desks were closed down. So, and some of these guys were moved laterally. And moving somebody laterally is not a smart thing to do. Just because you dissolve a department, you want to make sure you silence all critics. So this is why I expect, people and individuals that are connected with Forex to take a dirt nap soon. And if you're hearing my voice and you're somebody that's playing in Forex with a major firm, I would be worried if I were you.
How deep and extensive is the fraud and corruption in the Western banking system?
That's a great question. It is corrupt from its foundation to the topmost stone. One of the things I always say, Rick, is when you cast off all anchors, and anchors means disciplinary, structural fundamentals, okay, within banking. When you and some of this helps with having gold or silver or some sort of a commodity backing a currency helps mitigate fraud and helps mitigate the corruption. So when you're flying like the United States is, living off the printing press, and printing money with abandon, the fraud, because there's no anchors, is rife. If there's no anchors, there's no discipline. And when you have no discipline, folks, what do you have? You got corruption on every level. I talk to fools, they tell me, well, V, I got a $10 million portfolio. I got X amount of shares in this company, a couple of shares in Apple, a couple of shares in Google. And I look at them and I'm like, you own nothing. You're a paper millionaire. You got nothing. They're like, well, I own the stock. You don't own stock. Folks, let me give you a reality check here. You don't own your house. You don't own your property, you don't own your land, and you don't own any stock in any company. You own what's called a beneficiary title, a beneficiary certificate. The real ownership of all the stocks, of all the bonds, of all the mortgages in this country is held at 55 Water Street, called the DTCC. That's who holds it. So at any time, if you read, and that's a contractual obligation through the City of London, and at any time they can cancel that without your approval.
Is that the place that got flooded several years ago?
Yes. That's the one that right after Hurricane Sandy here in New York got flooded, and that who ever heard of a vault being flooded, folks?
Well, my thought when I read that was, well, there's the cover story for a future revelation that millions or billions shares of stocks and bonds were destroyed in a flood.
Absolutely. And if the flood wasn't enough, right after the flood, about 21 days right after the flood, the place caught on fire.
That's a string of bad luck.
Yeah, I mean, out of nowhere. I mean, here we got vaults.
All right, so our listeners who have a stock portfolio, if they do not have physical possession of the stock certificate, they don't own any stock.
You don't own nothing. You have nothing. You don't touch it, you don't have it. It's that simple. Just like your mortgage. Just like your land. People tell me all the time, I own my land. Okay, well, don't pay your property tax. You'll find out real quick who owns it.
Have they rehypothecated stocks like they did gold?
They're rehypothecating stocks on a daily basis. They're robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Tell our listeners what that means.
Rehypothecation is this, folks. When I was in the UK, we could rehypothecate to infinity. What that means is this. Let's just say you went ahead and you opened up a bank, you put money in a bank account, and you got an account in XYZ Bank. And I work for ABC Trading Company. ABC Trading Company goes to XYZ Bank and says, hey, XYZ Bank, your interest rates are so mediocre and low that there's no way, because of the market, that you're going to make any money sitting on client deposits. Why don't we, do some sort of deals here? Let's do a joint venture. Let's get involved in some trades, and we'll make some money. You can pledge your clients or your customers' money sitting in their deposits under their names as collateral. And then all of a sudden, XYZ Bank says, well, you know what? They say, well, the bank says, well, you know what? We could do that, but there's laws saying that we can't pledge our customers funds. Then all of a sudden, me being the trading company decides to lobby Congress and a couple politicians, and they repeal certain regulations that are in place that allows me as a trading company, as a brokerage firm, to start dabbling with commercial banks. Then on top of that, we start changing terminology, me and the bank together, where you're no longer a depositor in a bank, you're a unsecured creditor. Meaning, as soon as you drop your money into your account, it's no longer yours. So then we take your account and we use it as collateral to hedge in all sorts of trades, predominantly in IR swaps, interest rate swaps, and in the derivatives market. And if we wind up blowing everything, it's okay because your account has been pledged. And everything's hunky-dory so long as you and everybody else in the bank don't come knocking on the door screaming, saying, hey, I want my money out in cash now. So that's how the scheme works. And in the UK, we were able to rehypothecate your account to infinity. In the United States, we limit it to about 140%. So in other words, if you got $100,000 sitting in your account, we can rehypothecate up to $140,000, and it's your money, and you're on the hook for it. Too bad.
What would happen if millions of middle-class Americans who have a stock portfolio requested their physical stock shares?
It'll be like the hundreds of millions of Americans requesting their mortgage titles from MERS. It will absolutely crash the system. The whole thing will. Bankers will be hanging from lampposts along with the politicians. That's what would happen.
Not because it's an accounting clerical nightmare to find the shares and send them out, but because they don't exist?
What people don't realize with your mortgages, with MERS, as soon as you get a mortgage, MERS destroys your title in 30 days. That's a little dirty little secret, folks. After that, they don't have physical title anymore. The DTCC, they have all the physical, contractual, real stock certificates.
Why would MERS destroy the title in 30 days?
Because what they do is they chop up the deeds, they chop it all up, and they immediately put it in as collateral for back-end trades on the market, and they resell it as mortgage-backed securities. In other words, your mortgage, alongside with millions of other mortgages, are chopped up and being sold right now and traded worldwide.
Kind of like
that's
sausage.
Why you can't have a title on it.
It's kind of like making sausage.
Oh, yeah. It is a disgusting and sloppy process, Rick.
Mm-hmm. So a piece of my mortgage is mixed in with a piece of your mortgage and a piece of my neighbor's mortgage and bundled up and sold to an investor in Shanghai.
Correct. All as securitized mortgage-backed securities. And then when this thing goes pop, guess who comes and collects? That gentleman in Shanghai comes knocking on your door and says, "Get out of my house."
What are your thoughts about why J.P. Morgan sold their headquarters in New York City at bargain basement price, and their basement just happened to include the world's biggest commercial gold vault? Why did it sell so cheaply to the Chinese?
It's a great question. I broke that story back in, I think, September, or actually August of 2013 when that sale was going through. Folks, if you ever come down to New York, you ever go to Manhattan, One Chase Plaza is a beautiful skyscraper. It's a very expensive piece of property. It's a $4 billion, almost $4 billion, piece of property. J.P. Morgan sold it for $750 million. Not even a third of not even a fraction of what it's worth. So the question becomes, what's going on over here? Well, the truth of the matter is, and I reported this, quite some time ago. The reason for this is this. If people remember what occurred in 2012, you had the London whale. And as soon as the London whale, Bruno Ixel, the famous trader, and this is when J.P. Morgan was bragging, hey, we've had, no trading losses, 180 days with no trading losses ever. And all of a sudden, here comes London whale, and he loses a ridiculous amount of money in the derivatives market. As soon as he's done that, they came, J.P. Morgan did damage control. They said, it's only $900 million. First it was $700 million, then it became $900 million. $900 million becomes $2 billion. $2 billion becomes $7 billion. $7 billion becomes $9 billion. I came out and I said, no, it's over $100 billion. That's how much is lost. And then months later, what I said was absolutely verified. It was $120 billion plus that was lost on that derivatives trade by the London whale. What most people didn't realize, what was rehypothecated or what was put up as collateral for that trade was Chinese gold. Okay? Was Chinese gold sitting at the Bank of England. So when they lost that, they have to make up for it. And that's why they sold their headquarters right here in downtown, One Chase Plaza in Manhattan, and the vault that goes underneath. And that vault, folks, is the largest private vault on the planet. It's the size of a football field. And it's 7 stories underground, runs underneath Liberty Street, connecting the J.P. Morgan vault to guess who? The New York Fed vault. And there you go. That's what happened with the whole entire deal, and that's the connection there. And who was also monitoring that trade with London Whale when he screwed that whole thing up? Well, it happened to be Ryan Crane. And what happened to Ryan Crane? Well, Ryan Crane just dropped dead in his Connecticut home. And who's Ryan Crane connected to? He's connected to that guy McGee. That's the young gentleman who was also in charge of the IT and trade desk at J.P. Morgan, who took a flight, who decided to jump off the 33rd floor. Do you see the connections there?
It's quite scary. It's quite scary. We have a criminal cabal that's in control of much of the world right now.
We have a satanic cabal. What Rick,
thank you for calling it what it is. That's what it is. This thing is demonic. It is satanic. It is evil to the bone.
Yep. Absolutely. I will tell your listeners really quickly what has occurred to me. One of the reasons why I had an epiphany and I had to wake up. As a young trader, I was, going down the corridor, and we were brokering a major deal here. I remember so clearly basically at our headquarters, at our corporate building, walking down the hallway at 7:30 in the morning, me and a compatriot of mine, and I see the conference room door open. And I said to myself, that's pretty strange. Why is the conference room door open? Why are the lights on? And why is anybody in there? Because I didn't see anybody booking the conference room at this time, nor this day. And as I approached and walking with my compatriot, I felt a very, very strange, foreboding, heavy presence and energy emanating from that conference room door and from that room itself. And as I approached, you got the windows on the side of the conference room, and you got the door in the middle. I look in, and all of a sudden, I see the CEO, the CFO, the chairman of the board, a couple of members of the chair, the chief investment strategist, CIS. They're all holding hands, and they're chanting these Kabbalistic prayers with all sorts of occultic, esoteric paraphernalia strewn about the table. And one of the things that really stood out to me was a red triangle. And being from New York, I don't scare easily. You can pull out a gun, I'd probably laugh at you. But that scared me. That's when I realized these guys, at some level, there's something more than just human issues and human wants and desires that are occurring. There is something more that is not only driving this thing, but guiding it to its eventual end.
What did that experience do to you spiritually?
It woke me up. It really, at that point, I was a former atheist. I became Christian. I was actually saved under Pastor David Wilkerson's ministry. And after that, working in Wall Street, living the fast life, you kind of, even though I wasn't a bad person, I wasn't out there living for the world, I kind of put God on the back burner, so to speak. I kind of became a nominal, lukewarm kind of Christian. But that moment right there, folks, what it rung home to me was God's wake-up call saying, look at the beast system emerging. And that's the thing that I cannot escape from. Knowing that I am seeing the emergence, the integration, and the total control of a beast system, the Antichrist system that is taking place not only in the trading firm that I was working in, but it is bringing to unison every single firm, every single investment bank, bankers, politicians, and military industrial complex individuals, all of it together.
There is a consciousness that is congealing in the world.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. You cannot have, when you have things that happen here and there, that's circumstance. But when you have a successive string of events that occur, you can either say one thing. Number one, you could say everybody's stupid and they're purposely, and they're all wrecking the economy, whether they realize it or not. These are just idiotic politicians and bankers and whatnot, and businessmen. That's one level. But when the pattern begins to emerge, and when you really take a step back and look at it, you realize, wait a minute, this is not a bunch of imbecilic baboons that are, pushing buttons and accidents are happening left and right, and all sorts of trade and fraud is happening left and right. No, this is a well-orchestrated, precision action that is being done over and over again. You no longer have coincidence, Rick. You have a clear-cut agenda.
Do you remember the House of Representatives stenographer Diane Reddy? I interviewed her and her husband. She's the woman that stood up at the podium in the well of the House of Representatives and began prophesying that that the country was under the control of Freemasonry.
Correct.
Yeah. What is happening, V? And I'm convinced of this, that what is coming together is the satanic government that ruled the entire planet before Noah's flood.
Correct. They're back.
That's what's coming back.
They are back. And let me tell you guys, this is a look. What's happening is that these people worship Lucifer. Okay, now I'm gonna start saying things that I've never said before, and I've been pretty quiet in the last 18 months I've been on the air. But I'm gonna spill my beans a little bit here. These guys believe in this entity called Lucifer. They worship him. They believe that he's a brother and friend and the savior of mankind. They believe that he's going to grant them real freedom, real eternal life, real salvation. They are obsessed with breeding. That is why if you look at every major city in the world, like New York, London, the Vatican, we all have, in D.C., we all have obelisks. The obelisk is a phallic symbol. It's basically a penis, for those that don't know what a phallic symbol is. And what it is, it's their cross. That is their cross. Okay, the cross for us as a believer is our way to salvation. It's God's way of salvation. Their cross, the obelisk, is salvation through breeding, salvation through higher and higher levels of evolution and breeding and bringing it all together. That's their belief.
That's why the bloodlines are so important to them.
Very, very important. Now, what Lucifer and his minions are doing, they are building what some of us guys are calling the God machine. Okay, it is a global integrated computer consciousness. It is a machine consciousness throughout the world, throughout the galaxies. They have their relics and ruins are scattered throughout the universe. Okay, you see their relics on Mars, on the Moon, on Venus, on various planets. This is they believe. I'm not, whether you believe it or not, doesn't even matter to me. This is what
you're telling us what they believe.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So they've lost that. So they have a machine consciousness. Okay. That's how they're able to move. Is they are able to work within the circuits. Again, this is their belief. Hence, it is very important that they do this last-minute push in order to take humanity to the ultimate level of control. That's why you can never be saved if you receive the mark of the beast, because the mark of the beast is a microchip that as soon as it's implanted, you cannot be saved at all, because now you're able to be possessed by this machine consciousness, which is this Lucifer. Okay. Now there's going to be some people saying, "Oh, V is saying that Lucifer is a robot." I'm not telling you that at all. I'm just telling you that it's just a conduit from which he is able to transcend from his dimension into ours and manipulate into our dimension. So
because here's what's happening, V. Satan, because he is not a creator.
Correct.
He has no power of creation. In order for him to become a god and try to look like the true God of the universe, he has to use science and technology.
Absolutely.
In order to replicate the supernatural power of the one true living God.
Absolutely. You nailed it on the head. That's exactly what this whole thing is. And these guys, look, here's the thing, Rick. These guys are trying to escape judgment. We're talking about these fourth dimensional entities. They're trying to escape judgment. They believe they can keep downloading their consciousness over and over and over and over and over again into machines, that they can somehow escape the judgment to come. And that's the promise they give to their followers, that you shall not die, but you shall all live, and God is a liar.
Do you know the early church in the first several centuries, what they taught about demons is totally different than what most Christians believe today, because you ask a typical Christian, even pastor, and they'll say a demon is a fallen angel. And that's not what the early church taught. They taught that the fallen angels were chained in Tarsus, as the Bible says, and that the demons were the spirits, the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim.
Yes, that's exactly right.
The creatures that were produced by the sexual union between the fallen angels and human women. And because these creatures, Nephilim, were not, they were hybrids. It was a bizarre creature. Their souls had no place to go. And so their souls have been wandering around on the planet, in the universe, for thousands of years, and they have to live inside a living creature. That is possession.
Absolutely.
And there are millions of human beings walking around who are just possessed people. They're zombies. They're possessed by Nephilim.
I would Rick, I would so far as to say billions.
Yeah. I would say so also.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, let me tell you a true story. This happened a long time ago. So that, I want our audience to understand that this demonic, satanic, Luciferian empire didn't just arise in recent years. It's been growing and building and plotting for centuries, actually since the flood. I mean, that's how long it's been out there trying to be resurrected. God put the kibosh on that thing with the great flood, and it's taken thousands of years for Satan to rebuild his empire. He got squashed big time. Of course, he's going to get squashed again, but this will be for good. But this really happened to me a long, long time ago. I was in my 20s. My wife Susan was pregnant with our second child, which is our son Jeremy. This happened in I'm going to say February of 1979. As I said, I was in my 20s. We were enjoying the Jimmy Carter economy. For those of you who can remember the wonderful times of Jimmy Carter, mortgages at 18% and unemployment. It was just a horrible time. And here I was, this young father with one child, another child on the way. And man, I was, working and struggling to make it happen. And anyhow, I bought a life insurance policy. I'm going to name the company. I could care less. They're not going to sue me because I'm telling the truth. They're never going to take me to court on this one because it's the truth. They don't want this to be exposed. But I bought a life insurance policy with a fraternal organization called Woodmen of the World. Now, I wasn't, I was saved. I was a brand new Christian. I got saved in June of 1978. And this happened to me, like I said, around February 1979. And so I bought this life insurance policy. And one day, the man who sold it to me, and I remember his name was Earl Cupp. C-U-P-P. He was the state manager of Woodmen of the World for the state of Maryland. He came to see me, and I was kind of surprised. He showed up, and he said, Rick, I've got something I want you to consider. And I said, okay, Earl, what's that? And he said, I want you to go to work for me. And I was kind of surprised, and he said, I've got an awesome opportunity for you. And so he went through this presentation with Woodmen of the World and showed me how, I would be the regional representative for the organization. And, I had all this prestige that would come with, being the official representative in my hometown and blah, 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 all that kind of stuff, And then he said, he says, now listen, if you say yes, he said, every 2 weeks, I'm going to cut a check for X many dollars. And it was a staggering amount to me at that time. It was like make your eyeballs turn around, when you're in your 20s, with a second kid on the way. And I'm like, look, and I said, are you for real? And he goes, no. He goes, I'm going to do this every week. He says, I believe in you. And I said, so when he left, my pregnant wife said, you're going to say yes, right? And I go, well, I got to pray about it. She goes, pray about what, we need the money, so, family, you share with family and everybody's like, you got to take this. This is your big break, all this kind of stuff. But something in my spirit just said, this ain't right. Something's not right. And, so anyhow, what happened was, even though I had to check in my spirit, I bent under the pressure of family members saying, you would be crazy to turn down this job, So I went ahead and said yes. And he said, okay, he says, we're going to send you out to Omaha, Nebraska for I think it was a week or maybe 2 weeks of training. And so when I got to the airport, it was just a little regional airport, Mr. Cupp was there. And he wanted to say goodbye to me. And I had a Jesus First lapel pin on my jacket. And he said, Rick, can I put this Woodman of the World pin on you? And I said, well, sure. And he started to take the Jesus pin off. I said, no, you don't have to take that off. And he goes, well, I didn't think you wanted a second hole in your jacket. I said, it's okay. He started to take it off again. And I said, no, you can leave that on. Put that other one right there. And he said, I think we should take this off. And I looked right at him, stared him in the eye. And I said, sir, it's Jesus first. That means Woodman is second.
Second, right.
All right. And it got real icy cold. Okay. So then I get on the plane, changed planes in Chicago, and just happened that the young guy sitting beside me was on his way to Omaha. Turns out he has a job with Woodman. And I said, hey, did anything weird happen to you? He goes, yeah, at the airport, my manager said, hey, you realize that when you come home, you're going to resign your part-time position as a youth pastor. And I said, really? And he goes, yeah. He says, I was really surprised that he said that to me, So anyhow, we get to Omaha, the big skyscraper, Woodman of the World, all this stuff. And I walk in and we met the Southern Baptist guy. Okay. And we're telling him all this stuff, saying something weird in there. And I felt that presence that you were describing. The moment I walked in the lobby of that skyscraper, I felt, I can smell Satan. He's got an odor. And I just was aware of his presence there. And this high official walks up to me and he goes, have you three guys been initiated? And I looked up and I said, no. And he said, tomorrow night, 7 p.m., meet me at such and such a place. You're going to be initiated. And as soon as he walked away, I said, did you hear what he said? He said, initiated. Well, the Southern Baptist guy is saying, oh, come on, man. You're really getting far out here. It's a welcoming party. I said, no. He said, initiated. So it really bothered me, So between classes, I sneaked off and I opened up a room and I go inside this room that you're not supposed to be in. And it's full. It's got all of these artifacts from the Grand Poobah who started the Woodman of the World Insurance Fraternal Society.
Yeah, Joseph Root.
Yeah, you know who I'm talking about. He's got
Joseph Connery. The guy was a 32nd or 33-degree Mason.
You better believe it. And all of his paraphernalia from the Masons was in there. This was like a shrine to this guy. Okay, and I'm in there looking at this stuff, and I go, oh no, I'm in something I got to get out of. So I went. I went up to the top floor, the executive floor. I walked in. I put on my best poker face, and I looked at the secretary and I said, I'm supposed to pick up a copy of the ritual. And she just looked at me and said, oh, okay. And she went back somewhere and came out and handed me this little, I think it was a blue book. It would, basically fit in your shirt pocket. And I just walked out the door and went, I don't believe I got this thing. Went back to my hotel room, read it. This thing was demonic. It was a demonic Freemason-like ritual. And to make this story short, here's what happened. All of the new salesmen, and this was to sell life insurance, we were required to go into a room with no lights on, and they had a human skull with a lantern shining on the skull, and all of the inductees, the recruits into the company, was required to get on their knees and sing the ode to the skull. Now, I refused to do it, and I was leaving class one day, and they confronted me. These goons confronted me and said you're going with us, and they took us up to the top floor to the vice president, and I I was told, he literally said to me, you will bow. And I said, I will not bow. And it got very, very tense. And I told him, I said, I will not bow. I will not participate. And he said, you're the first person in 100 years to refuse. I said, I hope I start a trend. And he called his secretary and he said, get this guy a plane ticket back to Maryland. And he took his wallet out and he shoved this money in my face. He said, there, kid, go catch a cab and get out of here. And I shoved it back and I said, I won't touch your filthy money. And I walked out the door. It was snowing. And I flew back. I flew back to Maryland. I had quit my job. My wife is pregnant. Okay. It's the winter time. But you know what? God honored me. And I saw up front, there are demonic powers in some of these major corporations. These people are Luciferian, devil-worshiping freaks.
Yep.
That's
Absolutely.
who's running the financial system of this world.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right.
Well, this interview has taken a turn I did not prepare. We've got 7 minutes. If you can hold over,
Yeah, sure.
and we'll do tomorrow's program. But we've got 7 minutes here before the closing music starts. Let's go back to what we were talking about with the economy. You mentioned earlier that when people put their money in a bank now, they're not a depositor. They are an unsecured creditor. When did that change take place?
I believe, if my memory serves me correctly, I believe it was about a year ago.
With the Barney Frank, Chris Dodd bill.
Yes, the Dodd-Frank took it a little further. They basically, Dodd-Frank bill says it outright that they're going to bail you in. In other words, if a bank is in trouble, they will confiscate your account and use it to help bail the bank in to get it out of trouble. When you will get repayment, could be anywhere between 0 and 99 years, if any, because you're being an unsecured creditor, you're going to be the last online to get the divvies from the bank that just went under.
And this is in effect now.
This is in effect now, folks.
For every bank account in the United States.
Correct. Every single one of them.
So all of our listeners who have checking and savings accounts in their local bank, you are an unsecured creditor to the bank. And if the bank goes under, your money is the first that their grubby paws are going to grab.
Absolutely.
It's just outright thievery.
Oh, yeah. And the craziest part is, Rick, the American doesn't care. He doesn't care because this is some conspiracy theory or this is some far-off event and it's not going to happen to him and he's immune and he's miraculously protected and everything's hunky-dory.
Reality is going to hit them in the face very soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
How much time do you think we have left before reality is up close and personal?
That is the proverbial $1.4 quadrillion question, Rick. And, with so many things happening, people got to understand this is a multi-dimensional 3-4D chess game that's going on. It's move, counter move. You got so many thousands of variables involved. And oftentimes when we put together a date, we could be off by 6 months. We could be off by a year. But for the latest intel that I can tell you from my sources, we're looking at some time end of 2015 to be the complete demise of the dollar in the sense of world reserve currency. In other words, people losing total and complete respect for it. And then 2017 being the putting the kibosh on the United States as we know it exists today.
I've mentioned this many times on the program, this classic front cover of the Economist magazine. I think it's January 1988. You got to remember the Economist is owned by the Rothschilds family. So
Correct.
Always know who owns what news media outlet you're getting your news and information from. But the Economist magazine, January 1988, the main story was the coming global currency. And the image on the front cover is a phoenix standing in a pile of burning paper money, and it's all the money, all the currencies of the world on fire. And around the neck of the phoenix is a gold medallion.
There you go.
And it is called the phoenix. That's the currency, the phoenix. And the date stamped into it, engraved into it, is 2018. And when you read the 1988 Economist magazine about the coming global currency, it says at the end of the article, watch for the breakup of the fiat paper money sometime around 2018 and the emergence of the Phoenix currency.
That makes perfect sense.
These Luciferian, devil-worshipping demoniacs have had this plan, we know, for decades. Who knows? A century or two? We don't know. But they are implementing their plan, which they believe is going to give them total control over the planet.
Absolutely.
We've got about 2 minutes, actually about 90 seconds. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to ask V to just hang on the phone. And then when we close out this program, we're going to come back and I'm going to record part 2, which we will air on Friday. V, thank you so much. Let's just take a break, and then I'll be back in 1 minute.
Reporting the countdown to the second coming of Jesus Christ, you're listening to True News, the End Time Newscast.
Over 16 years, listener-supported True News has been the champion of news and content not heard in the mainline media. True News has expanded its message to 12 hours a day, 7 days a week on 2 international shortwave stations.
That's almost 9,000 hours of programming a year.
We now produce or broadcast
Revelation Ready,
End Times Outpost,
True News,
Strength for the Journey,
Preparing for the End Time,
Real Science Radio,
Homecoming Radio.
More amazing content is coming. We reach out through radio,
YouTube,
blog talk,
shortwave,
and our new smartphone app with over 22,000 downloads. True News is spreading the message of the second coming of Jesus Christ because of your faithful support to this vital message. A message like no other. But we can only go so far with the resources we have. Keep the message growing and strong.
Support True News.
Go to TrueNews.com to see how you can keep spreading this critical message. That's TRUNEWS.com.
And we're at the close of the program, and I want to mention something that I read a few days ago. Do you all know who Richard Russell is? He's considered the grandfather of financial newsletters. He's 89 years old. That newsletter is, that newsletter is older than dirt. He's been writing that thing for decades. And he said a few days ago, I woke up last night and remembered a dream. The leaders of 5 nations and their economists met in a town in New Mexico. The town's name is Last Chance. The nations that met were China, Russia, Germany, France, and America. The 5 nations decided that a new currency is needed. The new currency will be made up of money from the 5 nations plus $10,000 an ounce gold. But the shocker is that the 5 nations will declare a year of jubilee when all the debts are canceled, and it will set off a worldwide collapse of securities. But the world leaders agreed the solution is better than World War III.